myself again.
Good evening and welcome to Alive. Friday, it is the FAB 4 and great to see Steve Hasty, Keith Patterson and Mitch joining me as always to talk about the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And I guess the question on everyone's lips is, where's Willock, Steve Hasty?
Exactly.
Is he here?
Where is he?
Where is he?
Where is he? Where's our little Willy Willock? Well, according to our contacts, he's in town somewhere. So,
right.
As a friend of ours said about half an hour ago, he's either here to sign or he's here to pick up all the luggage that he brought with him the last time, and he's come to collect it. So there's your two options at the moment. I think that's what we're stuck with. But I mean, it's not. I mean, we heard yesterday that he was due. Whether or not we believed it, I know what's happening on the press side. Having spoken to Liam, of all people, early doors, his word was that all the briefings are no. And that seems to be a universal briefing coming right across from all the press guys. So I suppose the big question is, has Steve Bruce suddenly turned into the Aston Villa manager again? Who and is he modelling himself on the way that Aston Villa did their deal for Danny Ings? Is he trying to get it so secretive that it's going to be a massive, massive surprise? Is Willock going to walk out on the pitch at 5-2 tomorrow to a grandstand welcome of the 15,000 who have bought, or however many have bought tickets? God knows. But hey, it's the only thing that's kept us going over the last couple of weeks because there's nothing else happening on the transfer season.
I did laugh at the tweet by the lads at the Strawberry, and of course, Steve, that's a place that you frequent quite often with your kid and the lads. But the building that's going up next to the Strawberry, I did see the tweet where he said the building the stand to welcome Willock. Classic. Brilliant, classic. Brilliant. Keith, I mean, look, Willock would be a major boost, wouldn't it? It's been a depressing couple of weeks on the Newcastle United beat, I think, for everybody. And Willock would be a major shot in the arm.
I think it'd be good. I think he proved last year what he can do, and certainly the last half of the loan period went really well. I've got a mate who supports Arsenal and mixed with some of the players, and he says that Willock's an Arsenal lad and wants to stay there. And he's not touting himself around to go to the clubs, but what he is saying is Newcastle want us, so he's asking Arsenal to play him. And I think he's on a no lose, because if Arteta says, right, you've got 3 games to prove yourself, then he gets a run in the team and gets a crack. If he says, no, you can go to Newcastle, then he gets somewhere where he's going to get game time. So I heard the same story, that he was on a plane today that would arrive at Newcastle before 4 o'clock. And was told that he was definitely on the flight that left London. But, I don't discount the fact that, 10 days ago, there was a flight came in with mammoth amount of luggage on. So, I don't think he's in the habit of sending stuff up and down. But when you put it in perspective, it only cost a few £100 to send luggage up in any case. But he's supposed to have a girlfriend up here. Newcastle need him. But for me, today, if I was going to be uplifted, to thinking, well, we'll stop up now. I would have signed Rondon on for the I would have signed him on, and Paul's a dreamer, but if Ashley's only going to stay with this club for another year, let's say, or less, then would Rondon to back Wilson up, not more or less say, well, I think we'll stay up now. That's the difference. I think we need Willock. I think we need creative midfield players, but I think we desperately need to go into the season without just Wilson. So for me, I probably lifted my eyes up more at Rondon being available on a free transfer than what I did of whether Willock will come or whether he'll stay with Arsenal.
Which, I mean, reports from the airport are one thing. We've got it from a reliable contact of ours. Look, if he's here, great. It's a major plus. It doesn't take away from the fact that, we're now sitting on the 6th of August and this is, it's still showing on Sky Sports News, ins at Newcastle United, none.
Yeah. Only club in the Premiership.
Yeah, Mitch, what do you think?
Well, yeah, like you says, only club in the Premiership, not to sign anyone. They've shifted a bit more the dead wood out. And you would hope that's with a plan in mind, but what we know from sources within the club is the plan. What plan? Seems to be no plan anyway about anything. So that is a concern. It remains a concern that we're going into the season with Wilson and ASM injured again, but that's before we've kicked the ball in anger. You know, the word was we wanted 2 midfielders and a left-sided central defender. So Willock would tick one of those boxes, but we need more than that. We need cover up front. To hear Bruce talk about, we've got 5 strikers, and he lists, you know, 1 Premiership striker, 1 Championship striker, and then 3 guys who just aren't strikers, is quite worrying if that's the mindset of the manager, because there's no proof that there's any goals anywhere other than one of them from Wilson, and without him, as we saw last season, we're quite toothless. So I would like to think that, you know, that there are opportunities on the free transfer market coming up. We should be in on them. I mean, as we know, free transfers aren't free. And if we have had a small transfer budget and we're blowing it all on one player, then we've got to be super smart in terms of how else we sign players and what else we do with our squad. The word is super smart. Is there anybody within Newcastle United at the moment that comes across as super smart? I don't think there's anybody in Newcastle United that could have enough power to light a bloody 20-watt bulb. So it's frustrating. Willock would be a massive relief and a massive boost. But the way the club are behaving at the minute is quite weird. You know, speaking to Liam, that the club are in, they're not even being coy or coming across with no comment. That they're actually denying things, which again is a weird way to go on. But should anything in the wacky world of Newcastle United surprise any of you these days? And I don't think it should. Again, change of tactics. Why a change of tactics and how you handle the press? Who bloody knows?
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing surprises with the club, Steve. I mean, we were at the same talking last night. You came along and helped, you know, put together the talking that we did at Go Bigs, formerly the Punch Bowl in Jesmond, and nothing surprises us with Newcastle United. We heard it straight from Liam's mouth, who is reporting on Newcastle United on a week-to-week basis, and he said, I think for the last 15 months during the whole lockdown period, the club just don't even communicate to journalists.
That's right. And you know what was interesting as well, Steve? The feeling on the floor, the feeling from the people who are in the room. And I think if you're going to gauge Newcastle United by anything, then you do what we've always done, which is you go out, you listen to fellow fans, you talk to fellow fans, you get an idea for what those fellow fans are thinking. Just to gauge whether or not you're on the same wavelength as them, or whether your understanding is similar to theirs, or whether they have a different profile or a different perspective on things. And I would say to a man, the people that I spoke to yesterday, which was quite a few of the lads that were in the room, and I know that you had similar conversations, that the groundswell of opinion is very much in the same camp as what we've been saying. And I think people out there could learn from that. There's a strong sense of betrayal. There's a strong sense of disappointment. There's a strong sense of angst towards Ashley, towards the club themselves, certainly towards Bruce. And I'm sure we'll cover all of these topics as the next couple of hours goes through. And I think it reflects very much on what we said last week when we talked about the feeling that we had about how things were going to move with the club and what it was going to be like with a relatively decent crowd. I'm not going to say a full crowd at St James's Park because nobody really knows what it's going to be on that first game of the season against West Ham. But in terms of let's say 41, 42,000 Geordies inside that ground, they're all not going there going, oh, it's great to be back, you know. Look, they've taken the pigeon out the corner. The dead pigeon's been removed from the Gallagher end, and there's some new paintwork being done there, and they've washed the windows. That's not what they're going to be interested in. They're going to be interested in letting their voices be heard and directed towards what's happening on the pitch, but more importantly, what's been happening over the last 18 months that haven't been in that ground, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, the feedback we got last night was what I expected. And I mean, we gave a fairly honest account of our feelings about Newcastle United, about the takeover, about Ashley. I gave some stories about my dealings throughout that time with Rafa, about Lambias. I think although only, a very small audience can get into the venue, the 35, 40 people who were there last night will go away and tell another 35 or 40 people, who will then go on and tell another 35 or 40 people. So for me personally, the two main things that came out of last night were that, £410 was raised for the food bank, which meant that, 82 families can be fed for 7 days next week. I think Bill Corcoran, who got up and did a fantastic speech, as he always does, said that was something along the lines of 6,800 meals, which would provided from last night's event. But on top of that, we just gave a bit of clarity to those fellow Newcastle United fans sitting in the audience. It was good. It was good to be back out there. Good being able to speak. And well done to Liam Kennedy, by the way, for doing his very first talking as a Newcastle United fan. He's done one in Dundee when he used to report up there on Dundee Football Club. But to do one about Newcastle United, I think it just amazed him. I think it amazed him about, the amount of people coming up and, patting him on the back and saying, great to meet you, great to see you. He was just blown away by the whole experience. And it was good. Keith, I mean, the whole thing with communication in the club is something that's always been an issue. And this goes back to the year dot when all of us collectively supported Newcastle United. Communication has never been the club's strong point, has it?
I don't think it has, and I don't know if they've gone as far as admitting that in the past, but I think they know that that's the case. I don't think at any time in that period, communication's been what any of us would be proud of. So when you look at it, it just seems as though they've got a way of doing things, and I think that they put a massive emphasis and onus on sorting the finances out. So I think when they think they've often, when I've spoken to them, they've often said to me that you're lucky that that you didn't end up like Sunderland, because they think the cash they've put in and the way it's been run has stopped us suffering that way. But to do that, I don't think that's reflective of how well financially, for example, it's run and how many turn up through the turnstiles. I think people turn up through the turnstiles because of the mad loyalty and passion and the fact it's just Newcastle United. I think it's unique in that sense. But I do get a feeling this year, we talk on here tonight about Willock, and we said, God, what Mitch just said really, really well. He says, it'll be a great relief. I get what Mitch is saying, because I'd be relieved. But I think if I was being relieved over Willock, it would be because it's the start of something. I don't think Willock's enough. And I think you've got to stop and remember that Willock will just put us where we were at the end of last season. And there was maybe 2 games towards the end of last season, two that I can think of, being like Everton and West and Southampton, and 2 games when I watched where we hung by the skin of our teeth when we lost a player in one game, and where we just turned the tide in another game. And well, for them matches, I think that power and strength we found from somewhere, that inner belief, wouldn't have come with the struggle might have gone down. So to get Willock, which is, let's suppose we lose Carroll and we lose some of the players, and then Willock comes in, are we stronger? There's the talk about Leeds going to go through this second season syndrome where they'll struggle this year, but Willock got 8 goals, in those games, and what will happen? He might not score for the first 8 goals. So I think that the fans, you've just said something there, which I think is realistic, Steve Hasty, but I think it's really true. And there's a massive message in 41,000 is the numbers and so I stop at that and pause and think, what I'd rather see is small group of players brought in who'll keep us up to take the panic out, and then try and improve things like communications, improve things like the experience of going to the game, and trying to get that 41,000 up to what we'd call the norm, the 50+ thousand. Because I think when you've got 10,000 down on a home game, those gaps notice, and then I think what happens is you get a few bad games. I think it drops. I think people who's bought the tickets actually say, "Well, I've paid for it, but I'm not going, and nobody wants me ticket." And you've all had the experience where you've had a season ticket, you couldn't give it away. There's games where over the years people didn't want your ticket off you. And I can remember when you used to have a ticket and sell it, you could say, right, well, does anyone want the ticket? And the money was there on the knuckle. Said, no, you paid for it. There's your money. Well, I think that experience is changing. And if it starts the season with a possibility of a takeover and the possibility of getting a new owner at 41,000, that's a hell of a message. Like, that's 20% down before you kick a ball. And then you've got things could go wrong, and that's before you get any injuries, and you've got no strikers. So I think communication, Steve Wraith, is massive. I think they've hopelessly not put enough emphasis on it, and I think it's quite an easy fix. And I think if the new owners had come in when we hoped they did, which was going to be April, May last year, I think communications would have been the strong point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Mitch, it's something which we've talked about for many, many years before we even started doing this podcast. But communication is one thing we've always asked for. We've always wanted, communication from the club. And, there's been times where it looks as if they were about to address it, but nobody's really got it right. Not Ashley, not Freddie and Dougie, and the predecessors before that. It's always been something that's been lacking. And I think in this period of time, especially during lockdown and COVID, etc., it's probably been worse. And I didn't think it could get any worse.
Well, you've just got to look at that fantastic video from Villa CEO explaining to people about Grealish going. Could you imagine our club ever doing something as proactive as that?
Nah.
At any time in the history of all the ownerships you can think of, there's the only thing we've ever come close to was Keegan coming out on the steps trying to calm people down when he allowed Andy Cole to go. And that's as close as I can think. Communication with a club is something all four who have had experience of in one way, shape or form over the last few years. I can remember a time when Steve and I were regularly meeting with Derek Lambias on behalf of the trust after we'd bullied our way into the fans forum meetings. And we actually felt like we were getting somewhere with Derek, to the point where during that first relegation season under Ashley, Derek actually came to us and asked for advice, how can we improve things in the ground to get everybody behind the team. And just as we felt that they were listening to her, then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they pulled the shutters down and stopped listening because they thought they'd done it. And then when the relegation happened and there was no obligation to have a fans forum, the shutters were then also locked, and that communication just disappeared overnight. And so it was like 2 steps forward, 2.5 back, and it was even more frustrating because we'd felt like we'd got somewhere. Particularly with Lambias watching the penny drop on a couple of occasions, sitting in St James's with him, trying to explain things. You could see him starting to get it, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, because they're so thin-skinned, and that stems from the owner down, that all of a sudden that communication stopped, and it's never ever come back in any way, shape, or form with any real big value. And we've got this history of angst. I mean, you've been putting stuff up as part of the Newcastle United stuff on the channel. Documentaries from the 80s and all of this. It's the Groundhog Day, really, in terms of
now it's changed.
In terms of getting the club to interact and communicate with the fan base in any way of any value. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, it is. Let's take a few. Or go on, Steve, before we take a few from the punters.
Yeah, I think what we're going to say is as well is, if you remember, if you take a step back, Mitch, and around about that time up to 2012, 2013, that's when we got very, very active in talking to individuals within the club to try and press for the fans forum. Now, we all know that the fans forum wasn't the perfect model by any long stretch of imagination, but we worked with Lee Marshall to get something to be put in place that gave an opportunity for about 15 or 16 supporters to sit with 7 or 8 people from the football club and to talk about issues that were affecting the feeling, the strength of feeling among those as a gauge from various parts of the ground. And we all know that it was ridiculed by quite a number of people. We all know that there's lots of people out there felt as though it didn't produce what it should have produced. I think the expectations of some were kind of diluted, and I think, at certain points people thought, well, the fans forum will be this sort of open forum where you'll hear everything that you want to hear, where you'll be able to ask any question. Well, you could ask any question. You weren't necessarily going to get the answer, but what it did was it gave you an opportunity face to face to present an opinion where you felt the club was going wrong and ask them what they could put right. Now, when that died in 2019, and when the whole format changed, because by that point, remember, even the press were starting to use the fans forum minutes as sort of piecemeal news about what the club wanted to put out. And when that died in 2019, that was it. I had press time. I stood in front at a food bank event that we had, and the press lads were saying, "Where have you been?" I said, "I'll be at the fans forum." "Oh, great, we're going to have some." I said, "No, it's totally different now." If you want to know what they're doing about diversity, or if you want to know what they're doing about ticketing arrangements, or if you want to know what the foundation is doing, look out for the minutes if they ever come out. But apart from that, you're not going to get the questions that we were probing, that supporters were probing towards the club and asking them what their transfer activity was going to be, how they did this, how they did that, what the plans were for the other, and that gave the column inches to the press. And I think that it's the sort of thing that you've got to be hammering home. You've got to be hammering home that the club needs to communicate. It's important. Now we're in a situation where the club doesn't even want to communicate with the press. They want to control their own press. They want to control their own communication. They want a limited. We had it, if you remember, it's at one point with the Daily Mirror, where the Daily Mirror became their point of contact, and that was their sort of chosen voice. Now it seems to be that they want to do everything through their own media. They want to do everything through NUFC Fans TV. There's even a possibility that in the future, the Chronicle might only have one representative in the press room, because they're thinking, well, why do you need more than that? And it's this strange mindset that's set in over the last 18 months, 2 years, right across the game, in terms of understanding the value of individuals, thinking they understand the value of the knowledge that they have within the football club, and how they pass that knowledge out, and the way that they do it. And it's a fascinating dichotomy. When you can have someone like Christian Purslow come on from Villa and do what he did yesterday with a full explanation, and then you've got other football clubs, including our own, that would just go, "He's gone." That's it. That's probably all you will get. Well, he's gone.
Some of our players didn't get a buy. They didn't even get a thanks for the service.
Exactly. And this is the weird way. I mean, Lionel Messi's had a wonderful goodbye, hasn't he? Everything was going well, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, we've changed our mind." What's been going on there? But it's the value of knowledge, and how they're now going to work with it. How football clubs are going to use the fans and feed only what they want them to feed. They don't want to be sitting there in front of a press conference and be searchlighted, and managers don't want it anymore because of what's happened with COVID, to be searchlighted by 4, 5 or 6 people from the same newspaper asking certain questions on certain topics that they're trying to do. They don't want to do that anymore. And this is the downfall. This is where communication, becomes almost propaganda. It's not communication anymore. It's only putting out what you think or what you would prefer to be out there. And it means you're not being held to account.
But Talking of Messi, Steve, it brings us to this tweet that came out. I don't know whether you saw it. Obviously, Lineless come here with a big reputation, but Jeff Hendrick's been training well, and it would be unfair on the lad drop him there.
Well, it would, yeah, absolutely.
Lots of that stuff flying around the internet about Lionel Messi. And, I mean, it wouldn't surprise us if he stays at Barcelona.
I think it's a big bluff. It comes out at the same time as La Liga are announcing the change to the TV rates, and both Real Madrid and Barcelona won't be happy to be part of that because they've not been consulted, and they still have the Super League rumblings in the background. And I think it's a game of chicken with it. La Liga to say you're going to lose all your big stars, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I agree. And of course, a huge U-turn in the Premier League today as well, with Harry Kane finally issuing some kind of statement on his social media tonight, just before we came on air, essentially saying that he's back in training with Tottenham from Monday, and this was his allocated time off. So maybe it's the fact that Grealish has gone there for 100 million. Maybe his Man City haven't got any more money to spend. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that situation. Okay, well, let's take that question that I was coming to, and of course, the takeover, which I've said is dead in the water, is still on people's minds. Darren Cowan got in early with his questions. We will come to it, Keith, and he just says the Football Insider has been on about Newcastle and says one head says Kieran Maguire, major change maybe coming at Newcastle as Ashley makes his move. A lot's been made, of course, about Mike Ashley's changing working arrangements, shall we say, Keith, within Sports Direct. He's stepping down. He's handing over control to his son-in-law. Does this, in your opinion, play any part with the takeover?
I think if Mike Ashley, at his age and with his wealth, went through the season with the takeover stalling and Steve Bruce in charge, either he didn't see the last 15, 20 games towards the end of last season, or he's a glutton for punishment, because why would you want to go and put up with that again? I spoke to the club when at Rotherham at the game, and then I spoke the day after, and I said, it wasn't pretty. The game wasn't pretty, and the atmosphere was on a knife edge. It was getting I don't know, it was getting tense. I think we used to that, Steve, and Liam said the same. It was feisty down at Rotherham. So to go back in that, if he's made his mind up not to buy any players, and to try and go with what he's got, and if he hasn't got to take over close, then you can understand why he doesn't want to figurehead everything. But when you're worth $3 billion, if you sat down for 1 minute, worked out how much interest that gives you, you've got to look at his age, look at the fact that he'll take time out now to enjoy himself. And now he might think it's time for somebody else. I think he'll still be involved every bit as much, but he might not want his name at the front of it. And he might also think that if there's something coming off at Newcastle that's not going to please people, that he doesn't want that to harm the brand. And the brand is Fraser's Group and Sports Direct. So it could be all kinds of things. But when I've spoken to the club, I've spoken twice in the last 10 days at length, 2 long phone calls, they still feel that they're working on something. I get the same information that's shared with us, our group, us 4 and Liam, where the information sort of it starts and stops. I don't think it gets leaked beyond. It's kept in confidence. And the feeling we get is that whatever they're working on, they're not fully convincing the consortium of their role in it. And I can understand why that could happen, because when you sign confidentiality, it doesn't say, there you go, you can't talk to anybody but them. It just says you can't talk to anyone, full stop. So as soon as you speak to people, you could break a ruined relationship by doing that. People ask me in public on Twitter, what's news is going on, and I just sort of laugh and think, well, whatever news I had, I probably wouldn't be able to say in any case. And if the club had some highly confidential information this week that they were talking about in the Premier League, I don't think they'd be able to tell me, you, or anybody else. So, but I do feel, and I would say from I was told from that period of that week when we're in Rotherham, the next 2 to 3 weeks could bring something. But my gut feeling is it's not a Piff takeover. That's my gut feeling. What Maguire's saying there could well be proven true, but you just feel as though there's something getting ready to happen, and that it's not going to be as good as what we maybe hoped it would be. And people ask you to lift the spirits, but we just the same as every fan. Everybody watching this tonight, it's the same spirits as us, because we fans and we wanted every bit as much as yous wanted. And there's somebody on there saying, "Can we just say a takeover won't happen?" Why would I say a takeover won't happen if I've been told that?
I guess that's what I'm saying. Look, that was my decision when we went down to Rotherham. We're in the car together, and I've got to go on my gut instinct. I said the same last night at the talking, that my gut instinct that it's over, that this particular takeover is over, and I won't change that mindset until I see something different. But I'm not gonna lead fans on, and I'm not saying you are by not saying that this is over. We haven't been told it's over by either side, but you just go with your gut instinct, don't you, Keith?
My gut instinct, I've just given you on there, is my gut instinct. It seems as though they're working on something. I tell you what changed me is when the Premier League and the club put out a joint statement. That to me was a game changer, because every statement before that, you sort of knew it was coming, and every statement before that, the buyers were involved and the buyers were made aware and they were up to speed. But when that statement came, it was totally against what I expect to hear, that the club and the Premier League are jointly putting a statement out. And I thought, and my first inquiry was, were the club happy that the arbitration be delayed? And the question, the answers came back from 2 indirect sources was no. And there were solid sources. They knew what was happening, and they said we can't talk about it. But no, the club just wanted the arbitration done. I think PIF and PCP wanted the arbitration to be done in we all thought it was going to be July. That's what we were all told it was going to be. And if it was July, we'd waited long enough. You know what I mean? It was a year yesterday since I wrote to Richard Masters, so we've all waited long enough. And I only start writing after the first one collapsed. But right now, if you said what I think's happening, it just feels as though the club and the Premier League are in talks. It feels as though whatever they're talking about doesn't feel like the PIF consortium. It feels as though it's something else. Now, whether or not that means there's another application going in from another party, who knows? Certainly, I can tell you that nobody knows, because if they did, we'd know. But it's do I feel as confident? No, nowhere near. But I feel as though there's something going on that we don't all know about just yet. I feel as though there's something hovering around, and it could be a third party. It could be something that we don't know about have come into the fray. But I guess I look at logic. Why would the Premier League do a joint statement? Did the Premier League did Newcastle give them another bid and say, "Will you pass this?" They say, "Yeah, we'll delay the arbitration and we'll put that out. We'll pass that, and it'll take time." And maybe they're going through the rigmarole. There's been all these rumours, which certainly I haven't been a party to, which say that the ODT has been resurrected this week, and there's lots of stuff going on saying there. But I haven't heard any of that.
That's clickbait.
I haven't heard any of that. So when I've seen it, all they say to me is, "Do you know anything about it?" And I just say, "No, I don't." But it just feels as though the club, when I've spoken to them, they said, "Let's see what the next few weeks brings." And if Ashley dropping out, and another bid that's not the same one the fans had hoped for is going to come, then maybe it would all fit place. And when I talk to Liam, he's of the same opinion that there seems to be something going on, but nobody seems privy to what it is.
No, I agree. And look, Mitch, this just stinks to high heaven for me. It really does. And I've never trusted Ashley, and in the best part of 13 and a half years, I've not trusted Mike Ashley. I was delighted that he said he was going to come out and sell the club, but it was always with a bit of trepidation when we knew that PCP were coming back in with the prospective partners. I knew that they were serious, but for me, this just stinks to high heaven. It stinks of Ashley. It stinks of stinks of not wanting to spend money, and the fact that Keith's now talking about potentially other people coming to the table stinks as well. That's why I'm not even depressed anymore, lads. I'm actually angry. I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off with Newcastle United's owner again, and I personally feel like we've been hung out to dry by this owner. And I feel the PCP have been the one thing's for sure. The once we know for definite, and once the potential buyers know for definite, they will come out and they will give their side of the story. Yeah. And that is one thing that we will see. And I think then Mike Ashley's got a real problem, because already he's got diminishing numbers season tickets at St James's Park, 10,000 pre-COVID. If the person who sat at home counting all those empty seats has got it right, then there's 13,000 season tickets that haven't been purchased this time round. I'm telling you now, if he's been playing us all for fools with this takeover and leading on the Saudis and bringing them into this, honestly, I really do feel as if this could be the beginning of the end for our football club, and I feel that relegation is imminent with this potential. If we go into the season and we don't, and Willock tonight, if that is true, and he's on Tyneside and the deal's done and it's announced over the weekend, it's going to give us a potential. It's going to give us a potential lifeline to stay up because of one player, because we know what he can do, and we've got to hope and pray that him, Wilson, and ASM, if he's still here, can perform to the best of their ability and get enough wins under Bruce and Jones to keep us up. However, if we go down, I just can't see we're coming back. And I do feel we've definitely, under this owner, played Russian. We literally played Russian roulette, not roulette, Russian roulette. With our football club, and we'll not come back up. We'll not come back up. And we'll end up like the Mackhams. And this is where I'm at again. I'm absolutely foaming, like Mitch.
He got away with it twice. He was lucky to get away with it once. The thing, going back to that original, question stroke statement, we knew when we probably, I think, 18 months ago talked about this, and we've known about this a little longer, that Ashley's plan long term was always, at some stage, he would step back and he would disappear off to Miami. And that seems to be, it wouldn't surprise us if that's not the next step. It's made me revisit a few things and a few people. Steve and I have been talking to one of our Football League contacts about it all. And he's still adamant, because he knows Mike Ashley. He's been on boards of some of Mike Ashley's companies. That Ashley still will sell, but only at his price, only in his way, and he doubts that there's anybody out there that's got legitimate money to give him the 300 million value that he still wants out with the club. I'll be interested to see what's in the accounts when they're made public now they've been filed.
Christ, when are they going to be released?
Well, he's filed them today, so they'll be available in 10 days, Steve. They've been filed. I was bouncing this around last night with a couple of lads over here, and a very valid question: is there something in there he didn't want people to see, that he was hoping he wouldn't be the owner anymore, so it would just fly under the radar? But you never know with Ashley, because he's always messing around with accounting periods. I think he's changed the Newcastle accounting period something like 8 times in the last 14 years. And some of the accounting periods have been as low as 10 months, and some have been as big as 15 months. And so why he does this, who knows? But it means when you compare the accounts year on year, you're comparing apples and pears, because you don't know what the accounting period is, and you can't really equate the two. And you're right in one respect, Steve. I think we go down, that championship would be a quagmire, and I don't expect we to bounce straight back up the way we've done twice before. Because who will still be around? Who will still be around as a manager? Who will still be around as players? Who will actually give a shit? Because there's a growing apathy there in all levels. So and you're right. I mean, the growing feeling amongst us all from stuff we're seeing here is that there's something going on that we don't know what it is, but that's the actual feeling that you get from it all. And you're right. You know, a shift to a joint statement after all of the sort of shooting from the hip single statements was a big move. But who knows? But what we do know is that Ashley's plans always long term was to step back and disappear off to Miami, and that seems like what he's getting ready for.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting scenario. There's lots of rumours and counter rumours. I don't think the in the know accounts on Twitter help, and I know that it's only a small minority of people who follow social media. Not everybody who watches this show has got social media, but you know, the in the know accounts don't help. And look, anyone can put something out there and just hope for the best, and if they get it right, then they can claim a victory. But it's not helpful. You know, it's not helpful in this current climate, Steve, is it? And we've seen a lot of that in recent times, and I think from our perspective, all we've done is report, you know, as accurately as we can without betraying any competences, the fact that we've been presented by, you know, buyer and seller. And you know, I've seen the criticism this week again from a few, and I just ignore it. Unfortunately, other people don't. They feel they've got to feed it back to me. I couldn't give a monkey's what other people think. We've done the right thing. We've put the correct story out there. And I, you know, speaking to Liam last night, the book that he's writing about this, with all the facts and the figures and the names in it, and the times and the you know, it's going to be a hell of a book. But I think what was said last night, Steve, at the food bank talking was, let's just hope, for God's sake, it's got a happy ending.
That's right. That's exactly what we did say. I'll look at this. The two scenarios that were put forward there. The Premier League statement, a joint statement with the club. Is that a breaking of the ice? Is that a sort of like, you know, well, we're now, you know, there's an awful lot of angst gone before us, and we're trying to sort of bring this situation back to a more business-like and sensible, and taking away the nastiness? Or alternatively, is it just we'll agree to disagree and we'll see you in court in 6 months' time? You know, that you could look at that in both scenarios and feel as though it was believable. And that's been one of the problems, hasn't it, with this whole thing? The chopping and changing, the movement that we've had all the way through. You can believe something one day, and then somebody, an in the know account or whatever you want to call them, something else pops up and people go, I believe that now. And then it's like the big juxtaposition that then appears among the fan base, and the word gets round and the Chinese whispers start. And then somebody throws something else in the mix, and it's like, oh yeah, didn't think of that, didn't know that. Oh, it could be that. And it's all speculative. It's all a lot of it made up. We know that. You've said on many occasions, Steve, that, you know, that and you've said it already today, that is absolute rubbish. We know that that's not the truth. We know that that's not happened, etc., etc., etc. And it's unfair to the fan base. What I would say is exactly what you said, Steve, that we only report what we are given from very, very reliable sources. And that when all of this comes out in the wash, they'll realize how reliable those sources were, where we got our information from, why we said certain things at certain times, and what the outcomes were going to be, or what we hope the outcomes were going to be from those conversations. And then Liam's book will show us what the outcomes really were, and how those outcomes influenced and impacted the fan base over the last 18 months to 2 years. as I say, is it a breaking of the ice or is it an agreement or disagreement? We'll never know. Not with this football club, not with the lack of communication that they have, and not, more importantly, with that attitude that they have towards the fan base. I mean, their attitude towards the fan base stinks. We all know that. Said it for years. It's contemptuous at times when it comes from the very, very top, when it comes from the Mike Ashley area of the camp, which, let's face it, most of us feel is a black hole. There's Ashley sitting at the top, and then there's a black hole where nobody knows who's in control of the football club, whether it's Justin Barnes acting as just Mike's mouthpiece, or whether he just tells the Charlie what's going to happen next. My personal thought is that that's exactly how it operates. You just get a message down to you. You're doing this. You'll say that. Doing that. You're not saying anything, and then those people on the coal face, for want of a better phrase, are then left to take the flak because they're the people with the names above the door, or the names on the not the shareholders people, but they're the people who are marked up down as directors. You know, there's only one, and he has to take it all. He takes it all on the chin, and people wonder why he doesn't come out in the newspapers or why he doesn't come out and talk. Well, it's because the things that he's being told to say are the words of somebody else, and it's how he puts that over. And I genuinely think that he doesn't put it over because he feels as though it's not his responsibility to do so, and he's been told from the higher up, well, you don't need to. Who are you telling? We're telling you what we're going to do. That's as far as it needs to go, and that's the contempt that's right at the very top to have for the fan base.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have one of our regular segments in a second. As you all know, we have a fifth member of the Fab Four. He'll be joining us later, but only if you agree. He's sitting in the green room at the minute, Toon Tipster Joe, and he always goes on about coming on live. So if you hit the like button tonight and we hit 100 likes, we'll get him on live. If not, I'm afraid, Joe, you're going to be sitting in the green room. So the good thing is, Joe, I can see you laughing away in the green room. Nobody else can see you. Now, Joe, yes, he is, Steve. He's done exactly that. So if you want the Toon Tipster to come on live, we're 16 votes away from getting him on.
Disarm the button. Disarm the button. Switch it
How
up.
many accounts has he got?
200.
I can't believe it. We're up to 95 or 102. Oh, bloody hell. We've got to get Joe on live at 7 o'clock. So there you are, Joe. You're secure. Okay. Here we go. It is... Toon Lookalike, which is not often known as let's take the piss out of Steve Hasty, but tonight there's actually a vast array it's now a vast array of other people as well as Steve Hasty who are getting the mick taken out of them tonight. So in no particular order, we'll start with a Hasty classic from someone who inboxed us. Hasty, I've got no idea who sent us this because I cropped the name off by accident. A Hasty Lookalike, lead singer of Badfinger, Peter William Ham.
Dear me.
Hey, Steve, that's not bad, is it?
I'd had hair like that, I suppose. Aye.
back in the day, yeah. That's save our seats time. That. Okay, lookalike for you from Dave Wild, Robin Van Persie, and Ricky Puig, and I've got no idea if that's the right pronunciation. I'm sure Joe will take the mick out of us later on for that, but that is pretty good. Pretty good. This one was sent pretty much after last week's show. I quite like this one. This was Tommy Craig and Paul Dummett from Dr. Squat Pump. So I've took the photos out there. There's Dummy, and there is Tommy Craig. I think it's pretty good, that one. Pretty good. Okay, back to Steve Hasty again from Steve G. I'm afraid some people just now have gone to the point of not even bother with lookalike, Steve. They're now just getting somebody who's got white hair and superimposing your face on them.
That's Noddy Holder, isn't it?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a lookalike, Steve. Owen, it's supposed to be a lookalike. You're not supposed to put Steve Hasty's face on things that you think are going to look like Steve Hasty. This was good.
Yes.
Yes.
That's from Rachel. She went, I know it's not football related, but what about this? Darren Goff and Terry Scott, who of course was in the Carry On films and in Terry and June. Very good, Rachel.
Yep.
I know you're watching tonight, so well done.
That's
a good one. This is from Noel. Who's that, Mitch?
And it's me about round about the time of the Arsenal Cup final.
Excellent. Okay, I like this one. Michael sent us this. He went, these are the mugshots of William West and William West, but they're not related. They were both sent to the same prison at the same time in 1903. And after a lot of confusion, the staff understood that they were actually different prisoners, but they actually had the same name and looked exactly alike. You can see there is a bit of a difference.
It's an amazing resemblance, though. And what's that at the bottom? That's part of the reason why fingerprints are used as identification.
And now I haven't. Now look, we could be getting set up here, but yeah. I thought it was good up there because Michael didn't seem to be lying, so I've gone with it.
That's been banging around the internet for a little while, Steve. So I don't know whether it's certainly something I've seen before.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, Michael, thanks for that. It's not football related. They don't have to be football related, but thanks. Back into a bit of a Steve Hasty knocking shot now, and it's
hey.
This guy Keith B hasn't actually put your face on it. He's put another face on it.
He has.
I said that looks like you.
He's put
no, that was Souness.
Graham Souness's face.
It was Souness's, man. It was
I've got no idea.
There was two of them.
Is
it brilliant? There was Souness in her, and there were brilliant pictures.
Yeah, he said he called her Souness because isn't it? What's her name?
Susan Boyle.
Susan Boyle.
Yes, she called her Souness Boyle.
Souness Boyle. That's what that is. There's two pictures on it.
Good job. Well, I've only got the one. That one, I'm sure we've had this before. Steve Hasty during the week. Steve Hasty match day.
Which one's which?
You tell us.
Well, Sean seems to know.
Okay, this one is Keith. Tune look alikey. Rumour has it Keith Angry Anderson Patterson sung at Scott and Charlene's wedding. Who knew? That's Angry Anderson at Kylie and Jason's wedding on Neighbours.
That's right.
Very similar. I'm sure we've had similar to this before. Enzo Ferrari, founder of Ferrari, died in 1988, and Mesut Ozil. This one was from Shatters. He went, is this you on the front of Total Carp, Steve? Yeah, very good, that one. Yeah, it does look a bit like me. Oh. It was this big. Tom Dixon, thanks for that. One of me. The cap certainly caused a bit of a stir on social media and blinders, which is good. I love this one from Robbie. Saw this on Facebook. Hearts win and start at Hogwarts on Monday. Maybe a look like Harry Potter and he's sidekick in the crowd there. Two look alike. Steve Bruce in an angry cloud. That was doing the rounds this week. And we had this one down as well. Final one. Two look alike. A missing pensioner. And Steve Bruce, he says, I hope Steve Bruce isn't found. Excellent. Keep them coming. Send them to me, Steve Hasty, or send them to Mitch or Keith on Twitter, or Facebook, wherever you can get in touch with us. Always enjoy your Tune Lookalikes. Thanks, folks. As always, we've got plenty more coming up in the next hour, including Tune Lookalike. You've also got Tweet of the Week and Troll of the Week. So get the programme shared, and we'll give a shout out now to the sponsors. It was good to see Gareth from Spider VPN today, and give them a search on Google. They come up at the top of your Google search, Spider VPN. They can help protect your computer, protect your passwords, protect your photographs, and everything on your computer. Continued support from Spider VPN is much appreciated. And to Scott from skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, and the website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Also a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and also the people who run our website, where you can buy all kinds of t-shirts, mugs, and other accessories at NUFCmatters.com. Great to hear John's on the mend. He's back home now after his illness with COVID, and he is back in the chat tonight. And a big shout out to John at Jab Signature, who makes all of our flyers. Also, a big welcome, and we'll have had a laugh about this this week, to our two new sponsors for this month. Darren Baldwin Funerals, getting ready for the season ahead. Independent funeral directors, let us book after you in your time of need. Local direct cremations available from £1,495. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 2730, or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. His website is www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, and also L&G Family Funeral Directors 0191 389 7245 for all your funeral needs, and very apt with the season that we all feel is potentially ahead. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video. It does do us a big favour. Click share to share it to your other social media, and drop into the comment section to talk to like-minded Newcastle United fans. Don't forget as well, we are big supporters of the food bank on this channel, and you can still donate to the Matchday Bucket, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk, and donate as much as you want. You've still got time to be entered into the raffle, or the draw, if you like, for the watch as well, which will be drawn at the pool night, which has had to be rearranged due to John from Q-Tech's illness. There is the watch. It's a one-off. The date for the pool night will be announced in due course. I will also be sending an email out about the Christmas night. We have finally rearranged it for November the 19th, which is a Friday night, and that is at the Irish Centre as originally arranged. Because COVID restrictions are lifted, we will be able to sell more tickets. So I will be putting a link back up, and I'll advertise that next Friday for that particular event. But all tickets which were purchased for the Christmas do last year will be valid. Obviously, we didn't send tickets out due to COVID, but you just need to turn up. It is names on the door. So everybody who bought tickets, your tickets and bookings will still be valid. We will be putting tickets back on sale. Lee Clark will not be in attendance now. It will be me and Malcolm MacDonald who will be doing the talking. Malcolm is now committed. It looks as if Lee will potentially have a new job out of the country and won't be available to do that particular show. So November the 19th, stick it in your diary, and let's hope that there's no more COVID lockdowns and we can finally all get together and meet each other face to face. That would be great. And just a quick shout out as well to Bobix, who held the wonderful show last night, which Liam and I had with in support of the food bank. Steve, I guess just over to you really, and just a little bit about the night, and how much we raised, and how many it's going to help, I guess, and just a little bit about the night, and just thank you to Bobix and the guys who suggested doing it.
Yeah, and just a smashing place. I mean, I was a regular in the Punch Bowl for years and years, and now that it's been done out, and they have this smashing little cinema stroke room upstairs for venues, it was great, and a huge shout out to the lads who put a lot of effort in. It was a resounding success. I mean, we raised on the night £410 from entry monies and raffles and such like. And I think that's now been, according to Bill, that's now been updated, and I think it's over the 525 quid mark now. There was some people who like, for example, paid at 5:30, 6 o'clock for to come along. And of course, the lads were working on the lunchtime figures that they had in terms of attendance. So great at Bobix to then readjust it at the end of the evening when they did the head count, which was great. And the good thing is that it was universal support right across from the people in the room. And as you said right at the very start, Steve, a resounding speech from Bill, just putting into perspective exactly what's going on. And I think that if we can keep those words that Bill used in his head, we talk about dignity all the time, but we can keep those words that as soon as we don't need a food bank collection point at St. James's Park, it'll stop. And the reason it'll stop is because there's no need for it anymore. But unfortunately, at the moment, the demand is outstripping supply, if for want of a better phrase, right across the city. And now the West End Food Bank, as it was called, is now the Newcastle Food Bank. It covers the east of the city, it covers the west of the city, and it covers the north of the city. So its tentacles have had to spread far and wide to get that support to where it's needed in the community. And a huge thanks to the hard work and efforts of the people who work out of the Newcastle Food Bank, the vast majority of whom are volunteers that put that time together. Big shout out as well to one of the lads who actually did a sponsored swim during the week. He on behalf of the food bank, and he swam from Northern Ireland to Scotland. Now, can you imagine it? Talk about wild water swimming. He swam from Northern Ireland to Scotland, 30-odd kilometres from one point to another. And I haven't had it officially confirmed yet, but I think he actually broke the record for the time in terms of how quickly he managed to get over that swim. We'll put something up, and there'll be information on. I'll try and get it on NUFC Fans United website so people can have a look. And I'll also put it on the Twitter when I've got it all confirmed. But that's the sort of thing that's going on in the community. People, stepping forward and doing so much in support. We had a lad yesterday as well who came along, and he's presented Bill with a jinxed up pair of Adidas Gazelles, and I think you saw them, Steve.
Yeah.
You weren't like Cinderella. You didn't try them on to see whether they fitted you when you found out what they were. But he's where the gold gazelle normally is. We'll put the word dignity on. It's two beautiful logos on the back and two on the tongue. The West End Food Bank or the NUFC Fans Food Bank and such like logos look really good, and he wants us to auction them over the next month or so. And Bill's going to take control of that, and we'll auction those just again to keep the fundraising going. Thankfully, we've got a match tomorrow, and the food bank collection point will be at Strawberry Place from 12 o'clock, and then a week on Sunday, the first league game, and that will carry on, as you say, until as long as the demand is there, or rather use the word demand, the need is there for that support. And anyone who wants to come along and volunteer or just meet the team, find out a little bit more from John, the chief executive, about exactly what's been going on over the last 18 months, feel free to do so. Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, great stuff. It was a great night last night. And if you enjoy a night out and enjoy football crack, there is another one due at the Farmhouse Kitchen. There's only 18 tickets left for the evening with me and Supermac.
Where is the Farmhouse Kitchen, Steve?
I believe it's the old Stone Trough. I think, again, these bars are all going through a bit of a transition. Some places are opening and closing and whatever, but I believe that's what it is. But don't quote us on that. I'll have to double check and come back to you. I don't want to lead people up the garden path. But if you Google the Farmhouse Kitchen, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, you will be able to find out exactly where that is. And if you want a bit of a freebie and you're going to the Norwich game tomorrow, then why don't you join me and Supermac at the Dog and Parrot? We will be giving a pre-match talk in there tomorrow. We'll be there from 12. Supermac will be arriving about 1:45, and he'll be there till about 1:15. So if you want to get along and meet Supermac, if you want to get along and meet Spenny Mag, he's going to be there, and Holly's popping along as well with her dad. So if you fancy a pre-match entertainment before you get to the Norwich game, get yourself along. We will be upstairs. So come to the Dog and Parrot. It is upstairs. There's a nice little function room up there, and this is where we do our pre-match now. As I say, it is free of charge. And there's always some good music on as well in the background. Anybody who's been to our pre-matches before will know that. And don't forget as well, always some different content coming up on the channel. I had a couple of great interviews over this week. This one is one which, if you're into your military stuff, is well worth tuning in for at 6 o'clock tomorrow. The guy on the right-hand side is a guy called Peter McLeese, and he's SAS and paratrooper as well before that. But he was the man who was given the job of killing Pablo Escobar. And he's got a fascinating life story. I interviewed him. He's got a cracking book out. We put the link down in the description for that video, which is up online for a premiere on the channel. But set a reminder for that. Well worth a watch. That guy's an absolute legend. Great book as well. But watch that before you buy the book. Well worth listening to his story. Talks about why he joined the Paratroop Regiment, how he got involved with the SAS, how he became a mercenary, and how he ended up with that job of killing Pablo Escobar. Coming up the following week as well, I've interviewed Jamie Hull about his book. Again, another military guy, but with another harrowing life story about how he survived a plane crash. And that one is, again, another fascinating interview. Well worth tuning in for if it's something different you're looking for. Always something different coming up on the channel. Okay, we'll take one or two questions from people in the chat. Again, we're always going to get asked about stuff on the takeover when Keith's here. And Gary just says, "Hi, Keith, Sir Keith Patterson. You've got a title now. Sorry for asking you a question, but out of a percentage, what would your honest opinion be out of 100, if that makes sense?" You just look. People are looking for reassurance about the takeover. Look, Keith, it's your opinion, and I keep stressing this. This is what we'll have to stress on this show. It's our opinion. This isn't a carte blanche opinion. This isn't what we're saying is definitely going to happen. What's your opinion, Keith?
I think a couple of months ago, I was 99% of the opinion that the PIF PCP takeover would go through. You asked us today, I think I'm about 65-70% confident that a takeover will still take place this year. However, I'm less than 30% convinced it'll be a PCP PIF. And it's not because I've been given some resounding information that undermines that. It's just using logic. I mean, I'm a fan like you at the end of the day, and I want this as much as you do. So what I would never do is lie to you, and what I would never do is make something up. It's not my style. I've never ever been like that. But when I speak to people and I seek reassurance, I get told to be a little bit more patient, and I get told I am impatient. When I put the pieces together, like the joint statements from Premier League and club, that sends an alarm bell running in my head. Why would the club, when they've been so anti the Premier League, all of a sudden start doing joint statements? I know that they weren't happy with the situation of the arbitration being delayed, so therefore why do a joint statement, say at this moment in time none of the parties will speak further? And then when you put the information together we have from the buyers, you're just not getting the same vibes that I think everybody's still waiting. I think the buyers are still waiting. I think today, if Ashley went to the buyers and said, right, we're ready, I think they're complete. But I just don't feel as though that's I don't know. I don't feel the buyers are involved enough. And Steve Hasty once said to me, he said, the best thing you could ever do in these situations is get buyers and sellers together and say, look, we know what the obstacle is, and we know what the objections are. We know the enemy. So why don't we work together? And Steve Hasty's always said that is in a situation like this, when you've got a belligerent Premier League and a very deliberate cartel in operation, you've got to fight. You've got to fight hard, but you've got to fight together. And the club and the buyers and sellers now need to be locked together more than ever before. And whilst I feel the buyers would be there tomorrow if they were needed. We have to respect that it's the sellers who are doing the legal battle. It's them that are tied to confidentiality arrangements. It's them that could burst this by saying the wrong things. But I just get the feeling that there's something going on, but I feel as though there's been a change. I feel as though, and you know, ask us what it is. If I knew it, I'd tell you. If I knew it and it wouldn't harm anybody or damage anything, I would tell you. But clearly I don't know. Nobody knows it. And I've spoken to this group on here and spoken to Liam, and we share that information. And we all, I don't know, just think we get the impression there's something happening that's not maybe as we'd want or maybe as we'd expect. And so that's just the truth. That's you know, I have had conversations, I have asked questions, I've had bits of answers, but the whole thing I'm getting told is just be patient. Be patient.
Yeah. Nicholas, thanks for that, mate. I knew a good old felon lad would put me right. Farmhouse is the old Plough, Deckham, just up from the old snooker club, Orbit Computer. Steve, does that help you?
It does. I know exactly where it is now. Well
good.
done.
That'll help everyone. Cheers, Nicholas, from the felon. Good lad. My question, says Paul, would be who else would pay the same amount as the consortium was going to pay, especially now with the current situation? Steve, well, Steve and Neil will come to you on this one because Keith's just answered that last question. Steve, you first. I would say nobody.
Nobody? I don't think anyone would. I think you got to remember that this was a deal that was done before COVID. This was a deal that was agreed and signed off, and I think a commitment was made on all sides, or from both buyers and sellers. I think the contracts were signed, and it was just a case of getting ratification from the Premier League. And I think that knowing the buyers as we do, they would honour that. Honour the contract that and the agreement that they had, the handshake, and then all of the legals that went on. So in terms of, and Mitch has spoken about it, and I know he's going to say it again. He spoke about it many times. The value of the football club is nowhere near the value that it was at that particular time. So I don't think anyone would come to Newcastle. I know we can talk about West Ham, and we can talk about stupid bids coming in for them of 400 million and 500 and 600, and we can talk about crazy owners who pluck figures out of the sky for their clubs. But I don't think there's anyone out there with the wherewithal or the cash or the backing to take Newcastle United on at 300, 320.
Yeah, I would agree. Mitch, I mean, it's pie in the sky money now, and this is the reason we all felt Ashley wanted this deal to go through.
Yeah, and this is why I had the conversation I had with one of the contacts that Steve and I have, who updated us on some of the other wacky things happening in football at the moment in terms of finance. But it's quite clear. It's about, is there somebody out there with legitimate money who sees 300 million value in the club at the moment? And right now, post-COVID, I think particularly when we see the accounts come out, what is the value of the club? And I think that actually would be a hard number to come up with. And so it comes to the next question, is if Ashley is winding himself down and wants to get out of everything, then how much of a hit are you prepared to take to do that? And then possibly rely on one of the court cases to get compensation for the difference of what you agreed previous with PIF. Is that the strategy? Is that the thing they're working on? You just don't know. But there's no doubt in my mind the club isn't worth 300, 320 at the moment.
No.
There were some people who could quite legitimately give you an argument, and I've seen the argument, that the club actually at the time of agreeing the deal was probably worth about 400 million. So 320 was probably a good value. I disagree with that, but it depends on how you want to work the value of the club out, and there's a number of different ways. The money that's gone from the game so far is terrifying, and so that has to be factored into the new value of the club. So the next concern for me then is that if they're opening talks with other potential buyers, and we don't have any evidence to believe they are. And that the one conversation they did have, the cocked up badly. That what is the value that they're talking about, and how much of a hit on that number is actually prepared to take? I guess as time goes on, and with the COVID effect on the finances of the game, is there a case to be made that he's at a point where he wants to cut his losses and get out? Because he certainly doesn't pump money into the club and doesn't want to pump money into the club unless he absolutely has to, and he only does it in the form of loans. Hence the 2 promotions that we got first time round when he's got relegated before. So it's really difficult, I think, to value the club at the moment. And with Mike Ashley, who knows what goes on in his mind?
That's the thing. Mike Ashley's the only person who knows exactly what's going on in his mind, Keith.
It's funny because you all know, and you've seen the evidence that as is Liam, is that I got a call from somebody who had bid for the club earlier, bid on the club, and there was a question brought up that the club felt that the buyer didn't think they would get passage of the ODT, but the club were trying to get a deposit which was far greater than what they took off PIV. That's what the buyer said. So I've been in communication with him for several months, and he's always questioned me why I'm so loyal to the PCP consortium as well. If you look at the name of what we set up Newcastle Consortium Supporters. So that's all we were supporting. We were supporting nothing else. This buyer, who's very credible, you lot know him. You know who it is. You know you can just key his name in and you'll get him on the internet. You come up on Google, first search. He's a wealthy guy, and he's worth hundreds of millions. But the problem for me with that was, he said he didn't feel as though the Newcastle fans were keen to look past a PCP consortium. I said, does it surprise you? It's the wealthiest partnership out there. 97% of us have already said we want to do it. And what you'll find with Newcastle fans, if they make their mind they want to do something, they don't jump and bounce to other bids. And that's why I'm not going to do that. And he was sort of saying, well, if you could get the fans to, and I said, whoa, I'm one daft lad sat in Durham, I said, who got pulled into something because I understood competition actions. And I said to him, the problem I've got with what you're telling me is you don't have as much money as Mike Ashley. And Mike Ashley's been big enough to admit that he can't compete. So if Ashley's worth 3 billion and this guy's worth less than 1 billion, but a lot of that money was going to be raised. And we've already been down that route in the past where under Shepherd and Hall, money was raised. And Keegan was the first person to speak out against that, the difficulties of running a football club when you go into stock exchanges to raise money. So I was cool on it, but it's obvious that if I get told something like that, I pass it through. I passed it through, and then shortly afterwards I passed it through, there was this, this lull, this sort of, the joint statement, everything came out. So if you listen to that buyer, they're pretty adamant that as late as February this year, 2021, the club were prepared to take their offer, but they're saying they walked away. You'll find out when Liam's book comes out exactly who the bidder was and what he's tried to buy since and why he's back interested in Newcastle again. But to me, I'm not getting excited because Newcastle needs a wealthy offer to compete. If you look at the money Aston Villa's got, the backing behind that, or just take the Rubens. The Rubens are worth probably 70% of what Man City's ones are worth. They're worth supposedly 40% more than Abramovich, and they're the kind of people you need billionaires with tens of billions to compete in this game. And when you compete against the models of Paris Saint-Germain, Qataris, you don't want piff kind of money. And when you're talking about Aston Villa's, their owners are worth a seriously wealthy people. And I don't think Newcastle fans demand we're the richest. I don't think there's any of that. But I just think after the period we've gone through, that we've suffered, we're at the place where we want to compete. So, and the other thing I can add to you, because I can quantify, you said, how much, Mitch, do you think it's gone down? He was very straight with us, or open, and he said the bid that he put in was 40 million less than what the consortium's bid was. So he said it was 40. And if you work out the consortium's bid was rumoured to be 320, then it sounds like it was 280 million pound for the club. He says that he got the chance to complete on that. He pulled out, then the club came back to him. But again, when I raised that with the club, they felt that that he might not even get passage. You know,
two things I'd say about that is 280. I think is still too high a valuation.
So that's what yeah.
And the thing that worries me in that offer was the size of the alleged non-refundable deposit. Yeah. Anybody who's prepared to agree on that worries me as a potential owner of a football club.
Especially, but I mean, of course, PCP went down the same route. I mean, they had to pay X amount to get into the data room, and then PCP, along with the Rubens and PIF, put in a vast amount of money to.
But you're talking about a non-refundable deposit. That's all. That's of the order of 10 times what PCP put in.
Yeah, I mean, it's bloody
crazy.
Again, the only person who wins in this scenario is Mike Ashley. I mean, he's literally
of course.
He could say to 10 people, stick 250 grand in just to get into the data room, and suddenly he's got 2.5 million for sitting doing it out.
Well,
I mean, this is just him.
He's got history of it, man. That thing that he wanted us to do to get into the data room with the trust, buy a box. Mm-hmm. Buy a box. He did it the one of the Canadian bids. Buy a box for 5 years to prove you've got the money, to prove you're committed. He's always got this thing where he has to get a touch of some description.
Proper Del Boy.
It absolutely.
Yeah.
Proper Del Boy. Okay.
I was just going to say, what I would say, that people are saying, Ashley's stepping down and all that. My understanding is he's not stepping down. And at the moment, it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. He's stepping down sometime next year. It's not a done deal. It's basically he's put forward the proposal that he'll step down and become he'll not be the chief executive or whatever he's called of the Fraser Group. He'll now be just sort of a chairman. But this gets ratified. The lad, Mini Mike, as people call him, he'll get installed.
Mini Mike.
It's an ongoing thing that will happen at some time in the future when it suits the company. So it's like a progression plan that he's now spouted about, and he's told the city that, and you'll get a reaction from the city, from share prices and such like, and then that transition. From what I picked up it was sometime next year. Now that timing coincides with what the 6 months that he was looking for the arbitration. Back 6 months, and it seems to be the start of next year, next February, March, April, when he eventually sort of steps away and does whatever he's planning on doing it. So it does look like a parting in the waves, but it's not something that's immediate, So I think we've got to sort of understand that. I mean, I might be totally wrong. I might have picked that up completely wrong, but it's certainly the way that I read into it anyway.
What supports you there, Steve, though, is if, for example, and like Steve Ray said earlier, I think it's over, right? And you can't argue Steve's logic with that. I'm like, you were in the car, Steve. We shared calls, and I just was as open with you as I could be. And if you put your mindset to that, Steve, and then Steve Hasty says, well, it could be a part of the waves. If he's resigned himself that he's going to keep the club, or he cannot get rid of it. The one the club were quick to point to me last week was there are no more buyers. Now they didn't say that hasn't been said to me once. It's been said to us 2 or 3 times over the last month. And when somebody says the same thing to me, it tends to get me to question it. Because if somebody tells you something, a fact, and then they repeat it to you, your commercials, your nature, and when you're inquisitive, you think, why they keep labouring that point? And it could be because they want that point to be known, or it could be because they want you to believe it's just PCP's bid, or it could be that if they come out with a third bid, which isn't what the fans want, they think, well, there was nothing else there. But what you saying, Steve Hasty, sounds, it sort of dovetails with this, that it would make sense if he was resigned to keeping it, that he pulls his name off it to stop all the anti-chanting and all the nasty. And then, the like you say, Mini Mike stands up and they say, get a lot of chance. He's just took over. And it could be that's what, it could be there's going to be a bid somewhere else, that they're going to keep it, or it's going to last a lot longer and they want to take the sting out of it. I don't know. But usually you've all hit it tonight so eloquently that Steve Ray said, like, we've got Steve Bruce in there, and Liam Kennedy phoned us tonight. He said, thank God that Graham Jones turned up, but he nearly never come. And they looked at 3 people when they looked at Graham Jones. What happens if they got somebody else? And
not just me saying thank God, Callum Wilson saying the same.
I was when I read that, I was like, bloody hell.
Shows you where we're at when the players are telling everybody Graham Jones is the best. And look, we're gonna have to crack on, lads. 5 to 7, and we've got tweet of the week to get through before we'll get clearly the chat's favourite presenter, Joe, on the show, and we've got to whiz through these tweets in 5 minutes. Okay, tweet of the week. Steve Hasty and me and the guys pick out the best tweets that we have been sent or we've managed to stumble across, and there's been quite a few over the course of the week, and a couple were missed last week due to us not being live. I did like this one from Wayne, and funnily enough, I did actually see this guy, Steve. Obviously I've been to all the pre-season friendlies, and this guy's got Steve Bruce 69 on the back of his shirt.
I don't know what to say. You don't know what to say.
I'm not sure how much longer he'll have that on. To be honest,
he's got his back to us, and we don't actually know who it was.
He might get it ripped off his back if they will get up to the kind of season that we're expecting. This was absolutely superb. I can't remember who tweeted this, but he said he was expecting some kind of magic out of this lad at the Olympics. Ta-da! He's called. I did like this one from one of our regular viewers, Ferry Hill Mags. I just love this, Steve.
Yes. Classic, isn't it? They got all the tops there in the wash, all hanging up with a lovely fresh. And if I remember rightly, he was telling us what the weather, beautiful weather was happening in Ferry Hill. I think it was chucking it down in the town at the time as well.
Ferry Hill Mags. I tend to bump into him every now and then pre-match, but that was great. Nice photo, mate, and nice tweet. It doesn't always have to be funny or offensive. It just has to be something which grabs our attention. I like this one from Alfie.
Yes, this was a classic. Does anyone know when the NUFC transfer ban would be lifted? Absolutely. Hey, I'm afraid not, Alfie. I don't anyway. Does anybody else?
This one from Sarah Jane, a good friend of mine. She hadn't been on Twitter a great deal, but I just love the Geordie sentiment. Who's been putting 20 pence coins in the Twitter knackers? Yeah, plenty of them. Big Pablo, he's had a bit of stick this week, poor lad. Good lad as well. He says he popped into the local pub the other day. Some lad come up and says, "Are you the Big Pablo knacker off Twitter?" He says, this sort of thing is happening a lot now. I wish I was joking. I did interact with him after that and did sympathise with him. He says he doesn't know how I cope.
I don't either, to tell you the truth.
Okay, this one was good as well. This was just a direct tweet to me. He just says, watching your show with a few beers, keep it up. He says, my question is, why do us Newcastle fans feel hard done by and different to everyone else? We'll come on to that to finish the show, but he just wanted us to shout out to Harvo as well. This was last week. I'm sorry I missed that, James, but big shout out to you. Thanks for supporting us. Okay, this one again, he's been on a bit of a run, Alfie Solomon, Steve.
He has, yeah. I think the response that he got from his previous one was a classic, but with this one, replying to Luke Edwards, that I might be wrong, but Newcastle will win the league this season. I tell you what, I wouldn't argue with Alfie, mate. Not the real one, anyway.
No, definitely not. Okay, this one was from Ian Hull.
Yeah.
I had to look at it twice, but he did copy us all in on this one. Frank Spencer.
It's brilliant. That real Betty's. I mean, you've got to be of a certain age, I think, to get that, or you've got to have the Comedy Channel. But Frank Spencer, yes, Betty.
I did look twice, but I did get it in the end. This was a lookalike I missed, which has ended up in the wrong place. But yeah, that was on one of those videos, a Rafa Benitez lookalike. So that's not supposed to be in there, guys. Okay, this one, Mark Wallace.
Yes, a classic from Mark. This Castori really have done their research properly for our new away top. After nearly 2 years of stress from this never-ending takeover, a shirt with a built-in ECG machine is exactly what I'm looking for. And there you've got all the figures coming along. The brilliant, well done, Mark. Classic.
And the last one is tweet of the week. It's shirt related again, and it's from one of our regulars. It's from Tommy, and again, just pointing out that the shirt looks like a Joy Division album cover.
Yes, absolutely. A great album as well, by the way. But yes, well done, Tom. New, beautiful away shirt has a bit of a Joy Division Unknown Pleasures look to it. I think this could be a lot of unknowns this season. Not sure about the pleasure, though. I think you could be right there, Tom. At least we've got the shirt. At least we've got the shirt right. But
great stuff. Well done. Well done to Tom. You've got the tweet of the week, mate. Well done. And unlike a lot of these professional shows, we run on time. Here he comes. Hey! And he's live.
Run on time. I feel like Liam Kennedy on a Tuesday night. How are you?
All right, sir. How are you?
All right.
Yeah, I'm grand.
I pressed the red button for you. I'm honestly, I did.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to start by thanking me mum and all the sisters for hitting the likes button there to get me on. That was really appreciated. But listen, did I hear you? Did I hear you say that Spenny Mag gets to meet Super Mac tomorrow?
Yeah.
Talk about the cartel, Keith. I was threatened. We're being kept in the bloody green room, and he's meeting Super Mac. You'll have to give us a Donahue's phone number. Anyway, listen, football's back. Football's back. Championship kicks off tonight, where Bournemouth take on West Brom. I haven't really bothered looking at the Championship. It's not a league that we need to consider, is it really, as Newcastle? However, if you are remotely interested in it, just watch out for the early season prices, because as we know, you get all sorts of crazy results. Chances are Newcastle beat Norwich tomorrow. But there's not much in it. West Brom are the slight favourites, but literally you can get a playing card in between them. So speaking of the Championship, interestingly, with the Premier League, the newly promoted sides are favourites to go back down. Interestingly, the newly relegated sides are all favourites to come back up, with Fulham being in pole position at an interesting 11-2. To go alongside that, Alexander Mitrovic is favourite to be top scorer in that league again, with a decent price of 8-1. Not sure we'll get there, but it is kind of his level. Mm-hmm. He's followed up closely at 9-1 by Adam Armstrong. Now, I don't know about you lads, but I'm really, really, really hoping he gets his move to Crystal Palace. We can get some money in the pot to get a jet wash out of Argos and sort the Gallagher end out. In terms of the top six, outside the top three teams, you've got Bournemouth, Cardiff, and Middlesbrough all coming in close. They're followed by Forest, Stoke and Swansea. You can pretty much forget the rest. Unfortunately for old Wayne, Derby County are favourites for the drop. I was going to put a joke in there about elderly people, but neither Wayne nor Keith Patterson's lawyers will let me do it, so I won't. Oh, twitchy at the minute, these lawyers. Anyway, speaking of things that won't happen, onto me food bank bet, Mr. Hasty. Now, we've been through a lot in the Northeast this last 18 months, so I'm championing some solidarity. What about Middlesbrough and Sunderland to get promoted and Newcastle not to get relegated? 25-1. So that's on for the food bank. Remind me of such nonsense in 9 months' time when it all goes pear-shaped. Charity Shield tomorrow. Man City, as you can imagine, are the clear favourites to win it. But I actually think there's a little bit of value in the very, very impressive Leicester City at 3-1. And that's despite the City side with Mahrez, De Bruyne, Kane, Grealish, Messi, Boomsong. What a team they've got. Takeovers there. Anyway, speaking of things that are dead in the water, I was wondering if the lads from Baldwin's or L&G could do us a 2-for-1. One for the Takeover and one for old John from Q-Tech. There you are. That's it. Yeah, give us that phone number there. John hasn't texted me for a while. I'm really worried about him. Mind you, if he finds out I've got an unpaid invoice, he'll be leaping out of bed and legging it down the A19 to come and get his money. I was going to meet him for a pint tomorrow and all in just before the match, where Newcastle are slight favourites to beat Norwich at 5-4. Interestingly, you can nearly treble your money 13-5 if you fancy a draw, and Norwich are 13-8. So get your mortgage on that, Patterson. 1-1, 13-2, 2-1 Newcastle, 17-2, Norwich 2-0, 14-1. We might as well go with that and start as we mean to go on. There you go. I can't wait for next week. Finally get some Premier League prices and finally think about how many Newcastle are going to win by or not, as the case will probably be. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great stuff, mate. And you're gonna hang around for the
I'll hang fire, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that the new top you've got on?
It is, huh? Yeah.
Oh, there's the 4 there. It was because you were leaning down. I thought, have you got a snide?
I've been wearing cheap, crappy t-shirts every week, Steve. So I thought I'd put some decent on. But yeah, I love it. I love it. It's absolutely smart, that.
John's alive and laughing in the chat.
Yeah, because he knows there's an invoice. Yeah.
You can say because he knows there's an invoice.
It was only 50 pence for some chalk. Leave me alone.
Brilliant. Okay. Brilliant stuff as always, and Toon Tipster will of course be joining us throughout the season to give us give us some tips and hopefully win us a few quid over the next 9 months. As always, Julie, I haven't forgotten. Toss up this week between two new trolls, two great tweets. One very simple and effective, and one that was quite original. We'll go with the one simple one first, and that's a big shout out to Ben Keating, who clearly has no problem spelling the word baldy. Thanks, Ben. I did check in the mirror, and yes, you are correct. I am baldy, and this one. On the photograph of that Holly put out of a rainy day down in Burton from Washy Mag. The fame-thirsty Steve Wraith can be seen anywhere where there is a camera. Looks a right tit in that hat too. Thanks, mate. It was original. It covered what I was wearing on the day, and that makes you Troll of the Week. So thanks very much. And anyone sees any trolling, don't forget to send them to me, just so we can play this wonderful music for Julie. Ian Gaskell's just asking how much entry. It's free, mate. If you want to come to the Dog and Parrot tomorrow, we are upstairs. We'll be there from 12. Supermac gets there at 12:45. We'll be doing a talk in about 1 o'clock. We'll do about 15 minutes just looking ahead to the season, really, with Supermac. But we do it every match day, every home game at the Dog and Parrot. So get yourself in. We'll give you the times each week for each home game. But yes, it is free to get in. Life Goal says Julia should have trolled to appear in this section. I don't think Julie wants to do that. And everybody loves it when it comes on because they all love the cat. Chris McCarthy says as well, lol, I just spat my drink out. Stop it, Tune Tips Day. You're definitely the comedy. You're getting a bit of comedy value. You're getting what did you feel like when everyone started hitting the like button, Joe?
I've just said to Keith there, it's nice. It must be really nice to be popular on the internet.
Steve, we'll come back to you. Bobby Clark. It's obviously something that's been talked about. Lee is going to come on the show in the next week or so and tell us exactly what has gone on with the departure of his son from Newcastle United. It's not a name which really would be synonymous, I guess, with Toon fans because he's never played in the first team. He's a young up and coming player. But there's a lot of furore going on, and I'm sure Lee will give us the full inside story when he does come on the show. But it's not a good look, is it? And it's not a good start for Steve Harper in the academy.
No, it's not. It's disappointing as well for supporters who, we always have this sort of idea that young lads will come through and come good, and we haven't seen that many of them. We've got the Longstaff brothers there at the moment, Paul Dummett, in recent years who have broken through. But you always hope, and we've seen it time and time and time again with youngsters. There's a name and a reputation that they've built up. I remember. I think it was back in the 80s. Sean Murray was a name that was shouted from the rooftops as a youngster coming through, and he ended up as a 16-year-old signing for Tottenham rather than Newcastle United picking him up. I think it was rumoured at the time that the 100 grand plus the house and such like that Tottenham were able to offer in those situations helped. But what we've got now is we've got obviously a very, very talented young footballer learning his trade, and for some reason, Newcastle United feel as though that they don't need to compete in trying to keep him at the football club. And a much bigger football club in Liverpool are willing to take the gamble because that's what it is sometimes with a youngster. But they obviously feel as though Bobby has something about him. And I'm certain that his dad feels as though he has. And the vast majority of Newcastle fans who have watched junior football over the years or in junior football will know what an exceptional talent he is. So from that perspective alone, you've got to be sitting there as a Newcastle fan and saying, what's going on? What's going wrong? Not just what's going on, but what is going wrong at academy level and just above and just below it if we're not even able to hold a young lad whose father, his name is synonymous with Newcastle United during the Kevin Keegan era, and is still involved in the game and has managed some high-powered football clubs and is a friend of the show as well. I mean, and that was the final bit that I thought I would throw in just to keep people on their toes, because obviously that's the real reason that I'm shouting my mouth off. That's not actually. But no, he's a talented young lad, and we're going to lose him. And this isn't right. It's not right that we end up in a situation like this where we can't even get an academy product to stay. What's going wrong?
Mitch, it is depressing. Just another layer of depression in the Newcastle United lasagna.
Well, you say it's a bad start for Steve Harper. Steve Harper's coming in with everybody else before him's mess. And it is a mess. The academy, we're not seeing players progress. We often see players introduced who go backwards. The ones we bring in from outside with, big hopes. We've had problems of all different sorts in terms of man management and how people are treated. We've lost kids to Everton, and when they go out the door, they complain about how they were treated. We've even had the son of somebody involved at the academy leave under a black cloud. It's ridiculous. and we've been saying it for years. Who were the last people that really came through? Like you'd say, added value to the first team squad. Stephen Taylor and Shola Amiobi, pretty much, and we've had nothing since. And nor do we look likely to. There just seemed to be something not quite right. You hear, and I think this is connected to things like Adam Armstrong and Ivan Toney going to different clubs, and suddenly looking that they've progressed. Why weren't they progressing at Newcastle United? And that's not necessarily the fault of the academy, but I think that says something about everything in every strata of Newcastle United. The ethos and the way things are done, that somewhere down the line there needs to be an absolute root and branch reform of the mentality of how players are developed from academy to under 23s to first team. And that's where, you've heard Steve and I bang on about, well, do you want a sporting director or a director of football? When you're looking at how to set a club up, you want a sporting director who introduces that ethos from top to bottom. But if Harper's come into the academy and he has ideas about how to correct some of these things, then he needs to be given free rein to do that. And I'm not convinced any academy director is ever given free rein at Newcastle United. Unfortunately, I've seen how things work there with our Joss when he was playing in Northumberland, and then when he played at Durham, and he fed into the academy elite when we moved down to Durham. And I've got to say, it hurts, but the setup and everything feeding into the academy elite was way better than the crap that we've got at the time. Okay, it's going back a few years, but I cannot imagine much has changed, other than the fact that Sunderland, their academy now is probably the biggest value thing they have. But at least they do produce talent that goes on. And in the position they're in, their academy could be their lifesaver. Our academy, people seem to just stagnate. They don't seem to improve. And I'll be very interested to hear Lee's thoughts when he comes on, because it must hurt him to turn around and look at where his son is. Would he rather have him playing in a black and white shirt, or would he rather have him progressing as a footballer at Liverpool? I think he'd rather have him in a black and white shirt. But if they feel as a family that isn't the best place for him, I think that's a damning statement about what's going on with our youth setup.
Lee can speak for himself, but believe you me, he is not a happy chappy. Spenny Mag says, question for Mitch, which is more exciting, season 3 of Mando or the new Premier League season kicking off?
I'd check season 3 of Mando all day long, to be fair.
Joe, Bobby Clark, I mean, look, none of us have seen him play. I know the Clark family very well, known them for a long time. I've seen Bobby progress. I was excited to see that he was following in his dad's footsteps. I was hoping to see him make the transition from, young player through the academy into the 23s and into the first team, and hopefully, at least replicate what his dad did. We're not going to see that now. If we are going to see it, he's going to have to be bought for a stupid amount of money from another team now. It's a sad indictment of where we're at.
It is, Stephen. I think it's really interesting just listening to the lads there. If you just think about the football club as a whole, I mean, to think that we're waiting for these kids to come through. I'm from Middlesbrough, as you all know, and right throughout local football, all you hear is how incredible Middlesbrough's academy is, how incredible the scouting setup is, how much they look after the kids. When I was younger, you heard about Newcastle. Kids were leaving Middlesbrough to go on trial at Newcastle. I don't hear that anymore now. Everybody's going to Middlesbrough. And I think if you think about it, is there something about the business model? We've been crying last season to get people like Elliot Anderson a run out. Absolutely no sign of him. And it just makes me wonder why should we invest? Why shouldn't we? These lads are training with paddling pools and bloody wheelie bins at the training academy. Why would we? It doesn't fit the Sports Direct model. you know, we buy people cheap, we get a tune out of them, and we flog them on at 6 times the price that we bought them for. I haven't got time to be investing, and I you know, it smacks to me about the history. Like you say, you know, people like us would care that was Lee Clark's son or Robert Lee's son or whatever. These people don't. You know, Lee Clark is nothing to the owners of Newcastle United at the minute, and I think that's part of the issue, Steve. You know, the soul has been sucked out of the place. It's just really, really worrying that we've got absolutely no interest and no investment in the future of our club.
Yeah, you're getting personal calls now, Joe, on here. Hi, Joe, it's Marty, says Marty JD.
Hello, Marty. I've also, just before I move on as well, I noticed in the chat that Nick asked me for a price for Newcastle to go down. The 6th favourites, Nick, at 11-4.
I've just put you on there now, Joe. Now? I'll put you on. Yeah, I've just put you on there. Get back down there where you belong. Thanks for that added tip. Okay, I mean, Keith, look, you know, it is sacrilege. Bobby Clark leaving, and you know, people you know, a lot of people talking Barry Hogan, a regular watcher, saying Elliot Anderson, both Longstaffs, Watts, all better than some of the current squad. Can't get a game under Bruce. Rumours, Rafa's looking at Sean Longstaff. I would jump ship rather than work for Brucey. You know, it's the club all the way through, isn't it? Where this is the problem. It's like a bit of damp rot. It's setting in.
When was the last time somebody ever left Newcastle, a player, and said, "I'll miss the training facilities"? when would they ever say, "God, I'll miss those facilities. I'll miss that wheelie bin"? But then you look at people like think of that Liverpool contingent where you more or less knew. Like, Paisley was ill and they thought, oh, Paisley's going, or you always knew, you could look on the bench and you always knew there's 2 or 3 people there that would come up through management. And Liverpool, like, it's like what Joe talks about at Middlesbrough. Like, when we were kids, I remember Harold Shepherdson being a coach at Middlesbrough. And when people went over there for trials, kids, you know, people came back and we played like a decent level, and they said, okay, what a great experience. And they were looking after kids then. If you go down now to Croft and you look at them facilities again, the parents are all looked after, the parents are taken care of, and I know people it's been on their books, and they were, when one family's kid left, and they were absolutely gutted that he wasn't making it in Middlesbrough. And I've seen people leave Newcastle and Sunderland and be less bothered, but Joe's right, is Middlesbrough, not for 5 years or 10 years, I'm talking 30 years, 40 years, have always had a reputation for looking after kids. And my hero, you know, all this Kevin Keegan, you know, I put the guy in a pedestal, but I always remember him making a statement that he wasn't going to field a team in a certain league, and he couldn't afford a reserve team and all that kind of thing. And really, at the time, Keegan could have had anything he wanted, but at the time, I don't think he put a huge emphasis on the coaching and training the kids, and I think that's where it might have started. But since that time, you know, if somebody said this the other day, I met Peter Baker and Gordon Steen this week, just for a coffee. Gordon was driving up because he expected the pool night being on tonight and tomorrow. So everyone was coming up, and he still going to go and see his family. So he said, we're talking about coaches at Newcastle, and we're talking about the impact of Jones. But name the others, name the other 4. Tell us what the names are, the other 4. Some of you will turn around and say, oh, Agnew, and because you're mad passionate. There's an awful lot of people don't know the name of the coaches at Newcastle, and there's when you look, you know, if you turn around and said name some of the coaches at Chelsea or name some of the coaches at Villa, you know people like John Terry's name comes out, and people who have some substance. But Newcastle for years, you know, I remember looking at the bench and seeing Steve Stone in the end of them. You look at it, we just never seem to have invested the time and effort into the personnel to look after these kids, or the feeling when the kids went. And my mate's kid's on Newcastle's books at the minute, and he's a cracking kid and he loves it. And he's played a lot of games during lockdown, St James's. But I never see or hear or feel that Newcastle's academy and Newcastle's training, recruitment, local snapping of kids up, where literally years ago, every Wallsend boys club kid was going to get the chance, and Newcastle were all over the city looking at players. Yes, they lost some, but at the minute we just don't save at the races. We don't save the races when you look at the local clubs. So I'm not surprised. One of you said earlier as well on here that when you go back to people like Stephen Taylor, since we last produced home talent. But like people like Andy Carroll were they came through as younger people, younger players, and went for crazy money. And then when you think of the Longstaffs in later years, you know, when the Longstaffs were both on the field, and Matty scored that goal against Man United, call me a dreamer. I was excited. I thought, this is it. You know, we've got two cracking homegrown young'uns. But last season, I got the impression that all of a sudden, this so-called £40 million player, Sean, is not a good player anymore, and I don't buy that at all. I think Sean Longstaff has great potential, and I just think if Benitez was there, I think that Matty and Sean would be doing better. So I think it's right through. I think that's why when the takeover was coming, we were hoping that that money would be thrown at that area, and we'd get homegrown talent. But right now, I don't think the facilities or the staff or the mindset are going to keep kids in this region. So if I was Lee Clark, yeah, I'd want my son to play in black and white, but my first priority is my son to be successful.
We seem to have depressed a lot of people tonight. Chris Collins says, you lads have us beat before we start. Chris, it's the feeling of a lot of supporters. You know, what you feel and what we feel might be different, but in the long shot, it is a pretty depressing time to be a Newcastle fan. And we're in the Premier League, but by the skin of our teeth, is my honest opinion. And, you know, had it not been for Graham Jones and the signing of Willock, we would have been playing Championship football, and the odds that Joe read out earlier on would have included Newcastle United. It's not a pretty sight at the minute. I'm not, and honestly, the word that we get back from within the confounds of the club and the dressing room, you know, you hear whispers. There's, you know, you hear things from people. You know, it wasn't a pretty place to be, the dressing room last year. We just got to hope that they get off to a good start. They get enough points in the bag. And look, nobody wants Newcastle to get beat on this show. We all want to see Newcastle win. We all want to see them progress. Ideally, we all want to see a bloody takeover. But you know, it is what it is. And yes, we could be a lot worse. We could be in the position that Sunderland are in. We could be in the whatever it is, the third division. But from our perspective, it's, you know, it's just, we know what this club should be. We know where we should be, and that is why ultimately we're all on a bit of a downer, I think, because we're all hoping that the takeover would have gone through. Okay, you know, we've got a week to go, Steve. We've got 5 minutes left on the show. A week to go. What do you hope to see in the next 7 days before the big kickoff?
You said 5 minutes. Well, I'm hoping over the weekend that there's an announcement that at least we'll have Willock across the line, either on loan for another season or as a permanent deal. I'm hoping that happens just so that we can be lifted, just so that there's a little bit of enthusiasm that might pervade through us for next week's show. That's the first thing I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we've got a squad that then can be added to. Over the next, well, are we going to get someone in the next week? Probably not. But I'm hoping, I am desperately hoping that we're going to strengthen the squad. I'm hoping that we can get a striker in. I'm like Keith when he mentioned Rondon. That would be fantastic if somebody of that ilk could come in. That's where I am. I've always said I'm a glass half full man. But I'm looking at that squad, and I'm wondering who's going to be topping that glass up. And at the moment, I can't see anything that's going to support that glass being topped up for me. And it does need topping up as a squad. And not only that, but you've also got to remember that the players need fresh blood. The players themselves, they need new members of the squad coming in to keep the fight going. There's nothing that a player likes more than suddenly seeing some new blood coming into the dressing room and looking as though there's something to progress with. Looking at this, there's now competition. I don't need to idle. I can't idle, more importantly, because there's somebody breathing down my neck that I'm in competition with. So they need to raise their game. And we know that in a professional dressing room like we have at St James's Park, that's vital. Because that's the thing that galvanizes the squad. That's where the fights does actually come from. You know, they don't. If you have a squad that is just going to cruise through and you know, amble around and think, well, there's no pressure on me, it doesn't really matter. And if that sort of body language that we've seen on the touchline over the last sort of few friendlies is then going to pervade into the dressing room itself, then you're on a downer. And that's where the new blood that comes in, the fresh emphasis. That's what I'm looking for, Steve.
Yeah. Mitch, what about you? What are you hoping for in the next 7 days?
The sight of some sort of plan at every level on the pitch, in terms of what the signings to address inadequacies in the squad, and from the owner, who may not want to be the owner, but he is the owner, and he has a very big investment to protect by keeping it in the Premier League. And I want to get an inkling of some sort of plan, not sit and chat with you guys about what looks like to be zero plan, what seems to be a combination of Laurel and Hardy and the Keystone Cops running everything. And to feel that there is some sort of life in there that at the very least will not put us through another season like last season, where really our intelligence as fans and as supporters and as customers at the club was insulted on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to see, is to think that, right, they've got the delays with the takeover out of their system, and that they've realised that they've got to actually do something both on and off the pitch to keep way in the Premier League.
Okay, Joe, what about you? What are you hoping for in the next 7 days?
Yeah, just brief for me, Steve. I'd like to see Joe Willock. I'd like to see at least 2 more. Don't care how old they are, what position they are, because I think there is something about impetus and new blood. I'd like to see some communication. And I know, interestingly, you guys, when you start the show like we do every week, talking about lack of communication, I'd just like to hear something. Where's Lee Charnley? We've been saying it for 2 years. Where is he? Just as Mitch said, just to let us know where we're going. It doesn't have to be PIF. It doesn't have to be Amanda Staveley. Where is this football club going? And a clean roof on the Gallagher, like I mentioned earlier.
Keith, we'll finish with you, mate. What do you want to see in the next 7 days?
Realistically, one signing, and I'd like that to be Willock, because I think if we get him in, it'll make a difference. I'd like to see 2 free transfers and 2 loan signings. So I'd like to see input of 5 players. Willock is the purchase. The 2 loan signings I would like to see to be Ross Barkley from Chelsea and Tuanzebe from Man United, the centre half. And the 2 free transfers I'd like to be Rondon and Luka Modric.
Great stuff, lads. Great, as always, to spend 2 hours with you on a Friday night. Thank you to everybody watching. Over 600 people watching the full 2 hours tonight. Always blows us away. Never take it for granted. Thank you very much for your support. Thanks for hitting all the likes. And as I say, a big thank you to everybody who's watched this week. Tomorrow, day off from the Newcastle United misery. As I've said, we will be having the interview with Peter McAleese, which goes live at 6 o'clock. I'll be back at 1 o'clock on Sunday, though, with Mick Lowes. Me and Mick will be chewing the fat over Newcastle United at 1 o'clock and picking the bones out of the friendly with Norwich. Don't forget, I will be at the Dog and Parrot tomorrow, 12:45. You can see Supermac. It is free entry, so get yourself along there. Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy your Friday night. Lads, take care. See you later.
See you later.
Cheers,
everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
Head back with your critics attack.